So I've had a lot of people in my chat come in and ask me, what augments do you use for high rounds? So I just thought I'd make a quick video on the best augments to use for high rounds. Now I will be going over every single perk, but only one ammo mod and 2 field upgrades, because those are the only ones I use for high rounds. So to start off with, we have Juggernog. Now for Juggernog, I would personally use Probiotic and Harden Plates. Now this is because Probiotic increases your max health by 50, allowing you to have 300 HP when you have Juggernog instead of only 250. And the minor augment Harden Plates allows you to take less damage when you have armor on. To give an example of how good Harden Plates actually is, in my first round 100 game, I didn't have any augments on, including Harden Plates, and basically I was taking 53 points of damage every time a zombie hit me. But now that I have Harden Plates on, I actually only take 31 points of damage whenever a zombie hits me. And so with 300 health, that allows me to take an extra, 3 or 4 hits? So I would definitely recommend these augments for Juggernog. So next up we have Stamina Up, and for the augments on this perk I would use Free Faller on Liberty Falls. This is because for the strategy I'm running and in the next video I'll be uploading, you have the potential to drop down below and have a lot of damage dealt to you. I think it's like 130 if you just drop down. And so instead of taking 130 damage, you can just be immune to fall damage. And the minor augment I'll be using for this is, while tactical sprinting, projectile damage is reduced. So this means that the manglers don't do as much damage whenever you're sprinting. And that augment is called Hard Target. Now, next up is Speed Cola. This perk is kind of personal preference, but I prefer to use Supercharged, which allows me to get my field upgrades a little bit faster, so I can have that extra bit of safety with Ether Shroud, and I also like to swap my weapons faster as well. This is so I can kill the manglers faster at like end of rounds and stuff like that. And it's also just nice for swapping to pistols to run faster if you have to drop down and switch from the jet gun, just all that kind of stuff. After Speed Collar, we've got Deadshot Daiquiri, and for this I would be using Dead Head, which further increases critical damage, and Dead Break, which increases damage to armor pieces. Now after this we have Quick Revive, and Quick Revive is going to be a little bit of a different one. And this is because in a solo high round game, you are going to want to use both Equivalent Exchange and Dying Wish as your major augment at different times in the game. And then for the minor augment, I use Slow Death, which increases my time in Last Stand. I'm not actually sure if Swift Recovery works in a solo game, but I just use Slow Death. Now, the reason Quick Revive is quite different is Equivalent Exchange and Dying Wish can both be used only 3 times per match now, instead of per every time you save and quit. So that means that after you use 3 Dying Wishes, for example, you cannot use Dying Wish anymore in that game, but you can save and quit and change your augment to the other one. In this case it would be Equivalent Exchange, and then you can have another 3 revives. So really, in a solo game, you want to be using both of those major augments. I would use Equivalent Exchange first, and more info on that will be in my next video, which will be the high round strategy for Liberty Falls. Now onto Elemental Pop, and this is one that I just changed recently, and I absolutely love it for killing manglers at the end of the round. And so what I would recommend is having a Citrus Focus, which is where if a weapon has an ammo mod applied, Elemental Pop will only activate that one. This is so it will only activate Napalm, as manglers are weak to Napalm. And then the minor augment being Vulnerabine, which is actually better than the major augment, as this slightly increases enemy elemental weakness damage. And as far as I'm aware, it increases the damage you do to manglers with the GS45 pistols by 3,000 damage, up from 16,000 to 19,000 damage. That's if you're hitting their body and not their armor. So yeah, a very significant increase in damage there. So after Elemental Pop we have PhD Flopper, and for this one I would recommend having the major augment PhD Slider. Now this is actually really useful because when you slide into enemies, it triggers an explosion, and that explosion will actually kill like upwards of 3 to 4 zombies depending on how many you have around you. It's actually really good. And on top of this, and I think it pairs really well, is Tribologist for the minor augment, as this increases your sliding distance and speed. And for those of you from my Twitch chat, that would be the minor augment that I am using that is causing me to go so fast. Now, for Meleemachiato, if I'm being honest, you can have whatever you like. I have Vampiric Extraction, which gives me 25 health every time I melee an enemy, and Strength Training, which allows your punches to one-hit kill normal enemies for more rounds. But Meleemachiato, in the strategies I run for high rounds, it doesn't really impact it, so I wouldn't worry too much. You can mess around with it if you want to. Now, onto the major and minor augments for the ammo mod I'll be talking about, the only one, Napalm Burst. Now, if I'm being honest, all of these augments are really good, but there is a combination I've been enjoying as of my most recent high round match. And so for the major augment, I'm using Firebomb, and this makes burned enemies explode on death and spreads the fire to nearby enemies. And the minor augment, Incendiary, each damage tick has a small chance to spread to a nearby enemy. So at the end of rounds, when you've just got a bunch of manglers together, this can just help kill them a lot faster, because obviously the fire spreading and it's their elemental weakness, it all combines to make for them just dying a little bit faster. And finally, the 2 field upgrades that I would use. One of them I prefer for camo grinding and maybe the early rounds, and then the other one I would use for the later higher rounds. So for the earlier rounds and camo grinding, I would be using Frenzied Guard, and the augments I have are Frenzy Fire, which is while frenzied, use ammo from your stock, and the minor augment Extension, which just increases the duration of Frenzied Guard. And finally, for the later rounds, I would be using Ether Shroud, and the augments I'm actually using right now are Group Shroud, which nearby players are also cloaked, and an extra charge, which increases the max charges by 1. Now, normally I would recommend Burst Dash for any other strategy that I would run, but the strategy I'm running at the moment, I'm using Group Shroud, but I would recommend you use Burst Dash. This allows you to warp a short distance forward, killing all normal enemies in your path. And the extra charge is just there for a little bit of added safety, just in case you get screwed over really soon after and you don't have another Ether Shroud charge to help you out. And that's about it. That is my high round guide for augments. I hope you all enjoyed the video. If you did like it, please be sure to subscribe, like the video if you did enjoy, and I will catch you guys hopefully in the next video, which is going to be a Liberty Falls high round strategy guide for after these patches.